Vol.2 of New Testament Greek Made Easy. In Volume 1, we treated or dealt with what we call phonetics, chapters 1, 2, and 3. In Volume 2, we treating what we call part of speech. And we are starting with verbs first. Verbs in chapter 4. Verbs are the most important part of speech. This is because without it, a sentence is said to be incomplete. A verb is a word that shows what somebody or something does or is. We have two examples on board to explain this. Number one, Philip goes to church always. Number two, Philip is a priest. In the first one, the word goes is a verb of action, and it shows the action that Philip performs always. The second one, the verb is not a verb of action. It's a verb of state or existence. It shows us who Philip actually is. Therefore, we say the verb is a word that shows what somebody or something does or is. That is the definition of a verb. We come to characteristics of verbs. Number one, verb and persons. Verb shows relation to persons. There are three persons. The first one is first person. First person is the person speaking. The person that is speaking is first person. Second person is this person spoken to, while third person is the person spoken about. Let's look at this in English. Persons in English. We have the first person, singular and plural. First person, singular, I, plural, we, person speaking. Second person, person spoken to, singular you, plural you. Third person, person spoken about. Singular we have he for male person, she for female person, and it for non-living things and animals. Then the plural is they. The second characteristic of verb and number. Number tells us the number of people or things that are involved in the action performed by the verb. Generally, verb has two numbers, singular and plural. The third characteristics of verb and tense. In Greek, tense indicates not only kind of action, but more specifically kind of action. Not only time of action, but specifically kind of action. Greek tense emphasizes kind of action more than time of action. Tense indicates kind of action only in indicative mood in Greek, but it indicates kind of action in relative ways in other moods. Absolutely, tense is associated with kind of action in all moods. There are three kinds of action in Greek. Number one, linear action. This is also called durative, continuous, or progressive. In linear action, the speaker conceives of the action as happening, an action that is durative, continuous, and progressive. And the linear action A line is used to indicate the linear action. It shows that the action is ongoing. The second one, punctiliar. It is represented by a dot or point. Here, the speaker conceives of the action without any notion of its continuance. Just a single action. It happens and stops there. And this is what is used to represent punctiliar, just a dot. What happens at once and it stops there. That is the second one. The third one is ongoing results of previous action. Ongoing result of previous action. It can be represented graphically by a line proceeding from a point or dot. In this case, the speaker conceives of the action as being the ongoing result of a previous action. In other words, an action that has started and the action is continuous. Ongoing results. We use dot and a line to represent an ongoing result. In other words, the action happens and the action continues. The effect of the action continues. And this is what we call ongoing result of a previous action. The fourth characteristics were verb and voices. Voice shows the relationship between the subject of the verb and the action of the verb. There are two voices in English, active voice and passive voice. But Greek has three voices: active, passive, and middle. The fifth characteristics of verb and mood. Mood refers to different degrees of contingency in which the action of the verb is expressed. There are four main moods that are recognized in Greek: indicative mood, imperative mood, subjunctive mood, and infinitive mood. Present active indicative verbs. Present active indicative verb is equivalent to English present tense. Our present active indicative is equivalent to our English present tense. Let's look at the description of these terms one after the other. The first one, present tense. In Greek, present tense is linear. In other words, an action that is continuous, an action that is progressive or durative. The real idea of the present tense is that the action is going on. It is continuous or repeated. In other words, what happens? Always. It is only used for present tense in the indicative mood. The second one, active voice. The voice is active when the subject of the verb is the doer of the action of the verb. In Greek, we say a voice is active when the subject of that verb is the doer, the performer of the action of that verb. We have two examples on the board. The first one is Sunday claps hands. Here, Sunday is the subject and is performing the action of clapping. When I say the verb, the voice of the verb is active because the subject is doing, performing the action. The second example is Mark writes well. Here, Mark is the subject and is performing the action of writing. Therefore, we say the voice of the verb right is active. We come to the third one, indicative mood. Verbs having indicative mood are used to make statements. Verbs having indicative mood are used to make statements and to ask questions. Therefore, as we are considering present active indicative verbs, we will be looking at sentences, that's making of sentences and asking questions. So that is what indicative mood is used for in Greek. D, Fourth one, personal pronouns as endings or suffixes. In Greek, persons are discovered by looking at the end of the verb. Greek puts the persons, that is personal pronouns, of the verb at the front of the verb as endings or suffixes. Greek does not write the verb and the persons separately. They are written together as a single word. We have examples. English, I write. That is how English writes. But in Greek, both are written together. The personal pronoun, the verb are written together as grapho. In Greek, grapho means I write. Let's look at verb formation to portray this. In present active indicative, two things are very important. One, the verb stem. The verb stem. Two, the ending or endings. The verb stem remains constant, while the endings change to indicate the persons. The verb stem will always remain constant in the present active indicative, but the endings will always change to show the person or to show persons. Example, here we have the verb stem and ending. We have graph, which is the verb stem, and the ending, omega, which is O. Joining the two together, we have grapho, which means I write. Now, if you want to say we write, as we have here, where we verb stem, it remains constant, it does not change. The same verb stem we have here is what we have here. But the ending changes. The ending here is O, which represents I in English, while the ending here is amen, which represents we in English. Now when we say graphomen, it means we write. Therefore, you notice that the verb stem is constant, while the endings change in order to indicate the persons. Now we look at the present active indicative endings, singular and plural, first person, second person, and third person. In the first person, singular, we have O, and O is ha on the end of the verb. The plural is amen, which means we, amen. In the second person, the singular is is, which stands for you singular. And the plural is enter, and enter means you, plural. The third person, we have he will mean he, she, or it, depending on the context. The plural we have usin. Usin stands for they. Now let's look at how they appear with verbs. We look at the conjugation of present active indicative of omega verb. And first, the verb we are going to consider here is the conjugation of duo. We are going to look at duo, singular and plural. We are going to look at how these endings are applied to the verb called duo. In the first person singular, we have duo, which means I lose. I lose. In the plural, we have luomen, which means we lose. In the second person singular, we have lues, which means you lose. In the plural, we have luete, which means you lose, but this is used for plural. In the third person singular, we have lue, which means he loses, she loses, or it loses. In the plural, we losing, which means they lose. That will take us to the translation of present active indicative verbs. I want to look at the various ways that present active indicative verbs have been translated to. The Greek present active indicative verb can be translated to mean any of the following. Any of the following in English. In English we have present simple tenses. We have present continuous tenses. We have present and infinitive tenses. All are present. Let's take them one by one and see how we can translate it. Present simple tenses. Grafo means arise, because arise is present simple tense. So grafo as a present active indicative verb can be translated in a present simple tense in English. I write. Secondly, can be translated as present continuous tense. Grafo can as well mean I am writing, depending on the context of the sentence. The third one, present emphatic tense. Grafo can also mean I do write if the speaker wants to emphasize what he is saying. So depending on the context, present active indicative verb can be translated to be present simple tense, present continuous tense, and present emphatic tense. Here now we look at statements. One come to formation, forming of questions, forming questions. Here we have our statement and question. We look at English and Greek. I will look at English in the three areas, in the three ways that English can be translated. Here we have simple, present simple tense. He eats. He eats, because we are using eat here, third person, singular. Then it continues. He is eating. In a party, he does eat. This is statement. Coming to question, simple. Does he eat? In a continuous. Is he eating? Question. In a party, does he eat? The simple and emphatic are the same. Does he eat? Does he eat? But in the continuous. Is he eating? This is English. We are coming to Greek. If you look at the textbook, chapter 4, two Greek punctuations are presented. So I advise you to go to the textbook and check them out. The first one is period or full stop. It's the same with English full stop. But in Greek, question mark is not the same. The question mark is just like the English semicolon. So check them out in the textbook and take note of that. Now here in Greek, we have SDA. SDA means he eats. SDA, we translate he eats. He is eating. He just eats. He says it. SDA. Then we'll come to the question. SDA, the form of the last name we add SDA, which means does he eat? Is he eating? SDA is one. SDA is further. This shows that the syllable here, the tonation is higher than what we have in the statement. It means, does he eat? Is he eating? That is how Greek has a question. Let me explain further. If you look at the statement and the question, they are actually the same way. But the difference is in the punctuation, the full stop, and the question. So while you are pronouncing Question: does he eat? So at this point, we come to the end of chapter 4. But I want to advise that if you go to the end of chapter 4, there you will see the vocabulary. Memorization of words is part of the learning of language. And that vocabulary you will see verbs you need to memorize so that you can know or you begin to know Greek verbs. Secondly, you see exercises here. And endeavor to do the exercises and test your knowledge about what is in chapter 4. Now we come to chapter 5 of our textbook. And in chapter 5 we are doing nouns. Nouns are said to be names of people, places, or things. In other words, nouns are words that give names. Characteristics of nouns. 1. Nouns and genders. Generally, a given noun may be masculine, feminine, or neuter. It will not be masculine in one context and feminine in another context. It will always remain in its gender. Number 2, nouns and cases. Greek has 5 cases which are used in 8 ways. They are nominative case. A noun doing the job of a subject, complement, and apposition is said to be in nominative case in Greek. Example: Philip believes the word. Philip here is subject, and since it is subject in Greek, it will be in nominative case. Number 2, vocative case. This is the case of person addressed. This is the case of person addressed. Example: son, bring me the book. Here now, son is being addressed. Son is called, and the statement is given to the son. Son, bring me the book. So here, the word son in Greek will be in vocative case, but in English it's person addressed. The next one, accusative case. This is the case of direct objects. Any noun performing the work of direct objects is in accusative case in Greek. We have example: I brought the book. In this example, the book is direct object because the book receives the action performed directly. Any noun that receives the action performed directly by the subject is called direct objects. And the book here receives the action of bringing, and as a result of that, is accusative case in Greek. The next one is dative case. This is the case of indirect objects. We have 2 examples. I brought the book to Dad. The second one, I brought Dad the book. Now, to Dad here is the indirect object because Dad receives the action indirectly. In the first sentence, the book receives the action directly, which is direct object, while Dad receives the action indirectly, which is indirect object, and in Greek it's called dative case. Any noun that receives the action indirectly in Greek is dative case. The next one is genitive case. This is the case of possessor, and there are 2 ways that you can show that in English: with the use of with the possessor, or the use of apostrophe and s. There we have the word of God. Since of is used with God here, it shows that God has the words. The word. Then here we have God's word with apostrophe s, shows that God is the possessor here. So any noun that holds something is put in genitive case in Greek. Now we are seeing characteristics of noun. Nouns are numbers. In Greek we have, not as we have in English, singular and plural. The number 4, we have nouns, noun stems, and endings. The noun stems remain constant. They do not change. Only the endings change. The endings show the function of a noun in a sentence. In other words, the endings show the function a noun performs in a given sentence. Greek nouns can be anywhere in the sentence, but we use the endings to discover the function of each of the nouns. The endings vary in respect to number, if it is singular and singular and plural, in respect to gender, if it is masculine, feminine, or neither, and in respect to cases, maybe it is nominative, vocative, accusative, genitive, or dative. Okay, the 5th characteristics of noun. Nouns and declension patterns. A declension is an inflection pattern for nouns and adjectives. Greek nouns have been grouped into first, second, and third declensions, which are considered the second declension first. Most second declension nouns are masculine and neuter. Just have few feminine nouns in second declension. The case endings are as follows: masculine endings, neuter endings, singular and plural. These are the cases. Nominative case, singular is ox, the ending is ox. Plural, the ending is oil. Vocative, singular, and the ending is n in the singular. The plural is oil. Accusative, singular, on. Plural, whose. Genitive, singular, who. Plural, oh. Dative, singular, oh. With either sources. The other source is silent, and the plural is ours. Then neuter ending, singular and plural. The nominative singular is on. Plural is are. Vocative singular, on. Plural, are. Accusative singular, on. Plural, are. Genitive singular, oo. Plural, o. Dative singular, o, with either sources, and plural, os. When you look at the endings of masculine and neuter, you will see that genitive and dative are the same. So, after mastering the ending of masculine, you just need to master the ending of neuter in nominative, vocative, and accusative. That is just the difference. Now let's look at how these endings are used with nouns. We look at masculine noun anthropos first. The word anthropos means man, and we want to look at how the endings are used with this word to show different functions or different functions of the noun. The first one is nominative singular. We have anthropos. It means man. That's why the made is in the front. In the plural, it is anthropoi. Anthropoi. It means man. In the nominative, which is subject. In the vocative, which is personal address, is anthrope. And you see after it, command is put there to show that it's personal address. Man. Before the statement will be released. In the plural, is anthropoi. Man. The command suppose could be there. Then we come to accusative singular, anthropon, man, which is direct object. Then the plural is anthropos. men in the direct object. Then genitive singular is anthropo. It means of man. This ending of genitive, because genitive is used to show possession, so that's why the anthropo means of man. In the plural, anthropo is of men. Of men. Genitive singular, anthropo. With the iota substance or the substance and the iota is silent. It means no or for man. In the plural, anthropois, it means no or for men. We come to the neuter noun. The Greek word tenon, which means child. See how the neuter endings are used with the neuter noun. Nominative singular, we have tenon, which means child. The plural is tena, which means children. In the vocative, we have tenon, for expressing address, child. Then in the plural, tena, children. In the accusative, we have tenon, child, because it's direct object. In the plural, we have tena, children. Genitive, we have genitive singular, tenu, and it means of child. In the plural, techno, it means of children. We come to dative singular, techno, to or for child. Technois, the plural, technois, and it means to or for children. Now you have to master the endings of masculine noun, the second declension, and neuter noun, and then know very well how these endings are used with the nouns, depending on the function of the nouns in a sentence. The definite article. The term definite article refers to the word the. Below are masculine and neuter articles of the second declension nouns. Masculine and neuter articles. Look at the masculine article and then the neuter article, singular and plural. In the nominative singular, the article is her. With rough breathing, you have to pronounce the rough breathing and the omega. Her from the throat. The same thing with the plural. Hurry. Hurry. You pronounce the rough breathing from your throat. Hurry. Hurry. In the accusative, the singular article is turn. And the plural is twos. In the genitive, singular is two, plural is toe. In the dative, the singular is toe with the iota substance, toe, while the plural is toes. Now, when you look at the masculine article from accusative down to dative, you see that they share the same ending with the masculine noun endings, the same ending. Neuter article, singular and plural. The nominative singular is tall, while the plural is tar. Vocative does not have article. That's why I put that. Accusative, the singular is tall and the plural is tar. Genitive, the singular is two, while the plural is toe. Dative, the singular is toe, and the plural is toys. Let's look at how the articles are used with the masculine nouns and the neuter nouns of second declension. We look at masculine noun and masculine adjective first. Singular and plural. In the nominative, we have the article and the nominative singular word. Anthropos. Anthropos. And it means the man in the nominative singular. In the nominative plural, we have hoi anthropoi. Hoi anthropoi. And this means the men. The vocative has no article. In the accusative, we have ton anthropon, accusative singular. Ton anthropon, the man. In the plural, we have tous anthropous, the men. Genitive singular, we have tu anthropou, which means of the man. In the plural, we have to anthropo, which means of the man. In the adjective, we have to anthropo, which means to of the man. And in the plural, we have toys anthropos, which means to or for the man. Neuter noun and neuter adjective, singular and plural. In the nominative, we have to technon, which means the child, and the plural is ta, which means the children. In the accusative, we have to technon, the child, and the plural is ta, the children. In the genitive singular, we have tu technu, which means of the child, and the plural is to techno, which means of the children. To techno, of the children. Dative singular, we have to techno, which means to or for the child, and the plural is toys technoids, which means to or for the children. Toys technoids, which means to or for the children. Article agreement. In Greek, the definite article must agree with number, case, and gender. Or must agree in number. In Greek, the definite article must agree in number, case, and gender. With the noun, it's modified. So you have to master this very, very well. There must be an article agreement. If the noun is singular, the article must be singular. If it's plural, the article must be plural. In the case, if the noun is in nominative case, the article must be in nominative case. If it is in the vocative case, in the accusative case, then the article must be in accusative case as well. Then in gender, if the noun is masculine, the article must be masculine. If the noun is neuter, the article must be neuter. This is what we talk about, what is meant by article agreement. Very, very important. Neuter plural subject with singular verb. Generally, if a subject is a neuter plural, the third person plural verb will be used. But in Greek, neuter plural is third person singular verb. We have the example. The example we have on the board now, ta tekna graphe to biblion. In Greek, the verb graphe is singular verb, and the subject ta tekna is plural. So generally in Greek, neuter plural noun or subjects take singular verb. Then if we're going to translate it now, literally in English, we now have the children write the book. And this is not correct in English, but this is what Greek here is. The neuter plural subjects will always take singular verb, third person singular verb. That is the emphasis here. But in English, you will translate this Greek sentence correctly. So this is the correct translation. The children write the book, which is present simple tense. The children are writing the book, which is present continuous tense. The children do write the book, that is present emphatic tense. Note, when a sentence does not have a noun in the nominative case as the subject, then the subject is looked for at the end of the verb. We have two examples. One, ho anthropos blepe ton uron. Here we have a noun in nominative. That will now be the subject. And that's why in the translation we have the man, which is the subject, sees the sun. But in the second example, blepe ton uron. Here we don't have any noun in nominative case. The only noun we have here is in an absolute case, which is direct object. Then we go to the end of verb to look for the personal pronoun a. So this a will be he or she or it. So in our translation we pick he sees the sun. So you have to take note of this. If you do not see in a sentence a noun in the nominative case, then look for the subject at the end of the verb. On this, we come to the end of chapter 5. In the textbook, at the end of chapter 5, we will see the vocabulary and exercises. In the vocabulary, we see the number of nouns you need to memorize and begin to memorize Greek nouns. Then the exercises. Make sure that you go through the exercises, test your knowledge on what we studied in chapter 5. Now we come to chapter 6 in the textbook. Translation. Since we have studied noun, part of noun and verb, I didn't feel that we need to have an introduction to translation so that the beginner can know how to do translation from Greek into English. First, I want us to add lexical meaning and contextual meaning. Lexical meaning, it is the action, it is the actual meaning of a word as seen in the dictionary of vocabulary. Just the actual meaning of words, the nouns and verbs. Contextual meaning, it is the meaning a word denotes based on the way the word is used in a context or sentence. Contextual meaning refers to the meaning a word denotes or carries the way it is being used in a sentence. The difference between these two meanings should be borne in mind while translating. You must bear this in mind. because in the dictionary we have many words and we have their meanings there. But when it comes to how the words are used, then there are different meanings that these words are carrying. And you have to bear this in mind in translating. For instance, we have 2 sentences that we are going to translate now, or 3. This is the first one. We want to look at how to translate this Greek sentence into English and what we need to do. If you look at chapter 6 of the book, you will see rules for translating nouns. So you read on your own and then apply while you are practicing translating on your own. But let's look at the one we have here. The first sentence is toys anthropos ton logon kerususin hoi hui hoi tu debu. It's a sentence in Greek. I take the reading again. Toys anthropos ton logon kerususin hoi hui hoi tu debu. How can we translate this into English? The first thing you need to do is to identify the nouns. Here we have anthropos, which is a noun. The first noun, that is 1. We have ton logon with the articles. This is 2. We have hoi hu hoi, which is 3. We have tu debu, which is 4. These are 4 nouns. And all these nouns in this first sentence, they are masculine nouns of second declension. Let's look at how they appear in our dictionaries or in dictionaries and vocabulary. For instance, the first word is anthropos, which means man. This is the lexical word and meaning. The second word is logos, which means word, ordinarily. The third one is house, which means son. Then the fourth one is the house, which means God. So these are the lexical words and their meanings. But these words are used, these nouns are used in this sentence to mean different things. So we are looking here at contextual meaning. And that is the translation we want to make. We identify the nouns, which are 4. The second thing you need to do is to identify their functions. How do you identify noun functions in Greek? You identify that through their endings. Endings. Here we have eyes. Is the negative plural ending. Now, if this word means man, ordinary, and in negative plural, that means the men, then since dative is indirect objects, then this word will be translated to be to the men. Because in Greek, dative is equivalent to indirect objects in English. And an indirect object in English will supply 2 or 4 to join the word. And since it is plural, that's why I said to the men. That's what we have in this one. We translate them, the nouns, one by one. The second one, we identify the ending, and this ending is accusative ending and singular. Accusative ending singular, and accusative is direct object in English. Now, come along. Now means the word. But do not forget that it is direct objects. Okay? Now we come to, okay, let me use this way. To the men, indirect objects, and find how this is in English, indirect objects. We did. Why this is direct objects. Then we come to the next one, which is oil with oil. The word with us means some. And we identify the ending. The ending is nominative plural. That means it will be the men, the song, the songs, nominative. Or in English, not to be subjects. Subject plural. That means the word the song will be subject in English. Because nominative singular or plural is equivalent to English subjects. Then we'll come to the next one. The word the earth is God. And that is the ending of genitive. And genitive is equivalent to our English possessor. That means this will be translated as of God or gods. Gods. Now we've translated all the nouns. Then to raise the verb. This word to sing is the verb. There are two things in present active infinitive verb that are important. The ending and past tense. Okay? This ending means stay. Why? The past tense means preach. When you look at chapter 4 and you memorize the verbs there, you will see this verb, keruzo, in the vocabulary. So here, that is, this one means they preach. They preach. Now, if you look at the board now, we've translated the words one by one. Toys and rewards means to demand and demand. Turn the word and the end is direct object in English. That is opposite. Kerusuze means they preach. Then we have hoi with hoi means the songs and the subjects. Then tu telugu means of God or gods. Then how do we fix this in English? We need to follow the English pattern of syntax. And what is the English pattern of syntax? The English pattern of syntax is subject first plus verb plus direct object and rest. This is English syntax pattern. Now, if that should be the case, we now say, okay, subject first. So the subject we have here now is hoi with hoi, the songs. The songs. Then we now have the songs. followed by the verb. Kerususin. Now, this means they preach. This day is referring now to the Psalms. So we're not going to put day any longer. We'll preach. The Psalms preach. The Psalms preach. What do they preach? We go to direct object. Here we have turn logon to be direct objects. The word. The word. Then we still have a noun too. Out of the 4 nouns that we've considered only 2. 1, 2. So we have to pick the next one. Poise and to poise means to the men. That means the sons preach the word to the men. We are not yet through. We've translated 1, 2, 3 nouns. We are still having one remaining. The verb is here already. So we have only this remaining. To the who. Now look at it. To the who is of God. Which area will it fit into? We have the man. We have the world. We have the men. Here we have the sons, rather. The world, the men. Which one will of God follow? It depends. If we supply it here, we now have the sons of God preached the word to the men. Full stop. We are now having a full translation in English. The sons of God preach the word to the men. If you look at the Greek sentence, you see that they are not arranged as English. Our sentence will be arranged, or syntax will be arranged. Any noun can be anywhere in Greek. But what you use to identify their functions is the endings that each noun carries. We see now that the subject is almost the last word in the sentence, and is the subject in English. So take note of this. You use the endings to identify the functions of nouns in Greek. Now, let's take a look at this sentence. What we have is the sons of God preach the word to the men. We can as well translate it to be the sons preach the word of God to the men. We can as well translate it to be the sons preach the word to the men of God. If you look at the textbook, these 3 possible translations are presented. So use this to practice on your own. We are going to the second sentence. The second sentence. The second sentence is: Didaste toys adelphois paulios tu hieru turn namon to be blue. Here we have to identify the nouns. We have to identify the nouns. The first one with the article is this: toys and then toys. The first one. The second one is curious. And the second one. The third one is two hieru. 3. And the fourth is turn among. Turn is to be blue. 5 nouns. In the first sentence, all the nouns we translated were all masculine nouns. But in this second sentence, we have masculine nouns and neuter nouns of second declension. Masculine nouns are masculine nouns. The first one is adelphos, which means brother. The second one is kurios, which means Lord or master. The third one is nomos, which means law. Okay, neuter. In the neuter, we have the first one here, wrong, which means temple. And the second one is biblion, which means book. So we have 3 masculine nouns and 2 neuter nouns of second declension. Okay? Now that we know the neuter nouns and the masculine noun, we'll go to the identification of the functions of each of the nouns. The first one is adelphos. Hos is the dative plural of masculine noun, which means this will either be to or for the brother in translation. And it is indirect objects. The ending is indirect objects because dative case is equivalent to our indirect object. So you have to memorize that so that you can use that easily while you are doing your translation. The second noun to be identified is kurios. The ending is nominative singular. Nominative singular with the article. We have the Lord or master. The Lord or master. The next word is to heru. We identify the ending. The ending is the ending of genitive singular, but it's a neuter noun. Genitive singular. That means since it is genitive, it's possessive or possessor. Then this will now be of the temple, since it is possessor of the temple. Then the next one is ton nomon. The ending is accusative singular. Accusative singular. Then with the article we have the law, which is direct object. This is possessor. Possessor. Direct object. Then we'll come to the last one. To be blue. This word is also a neuter noun, and the ending is ending of possessor. So we have of the book. Of the book, possessor. Now we've done the translation of all the nouns. Come to that of the verb. We look at the ending of the verb and the verb stem. The verb stem means teach. The ending means he. He teaches. So we've done rough translation. Then how do we do the correct translation in English? We'll come to the English pattern as well. Subject plus verb plus direct object. So therefore we have to look for subject first. How curious is the subject here? Is the only word or the only noun in nominative, and this nominative is singular. The Lord. Then we pick it first. The Lord. Then the verb is the next one. So we have here it teaches. That means the Lord replaces he here. The Lord teaches. Then the direct object. And the direct object we have here is the Lord. Turn on. The Lord teaches. The Lord teaches. The Lord. The Lord teaches the Lord. Then we come to the next one, which is indirect object. Because after the direct object, the indirect object will come. So we have the Lord teaches the Lord to the brothers. The Lord teaches the Lord to the brothers. Now, we've placed some nouns, but there are some that we've not actually placed. We have two that we've not placed. We have this one and this one. They are all genetic, they are all in genetic cases. Then, how do we fix them? Then we look at the sentences. If you look at this side, we have after hoi prios, we have two teru. So we can possibly say the Lord of the temple teaches. We are trying to fix the correct translation. The Lord of the temple teaches. The Lord of the temple teaches. The law of what? If you look at the law, after the law, we have two bibliou, which means of the book. So we can answer, okay, the law of the book. The law of the book. The law of the book. Then refers to the brothers. We now have a balanced translation. The Lord of the temple teaches the law of the book to the brothers. So what we have in Greek here simply means in English, the law of the temple the law of the book to the brothers. You have to practice before you be able to know this. Ordinarily, looking at this word, I can say the meaning without going through this. But for a beginner, you have to begin to practice like this in order to master Greek language. By the time you master it, then it will be easy for you to look at a sentence and say the meaning without going through this process. The third example of translation is angeloi, ton prosopon, to prosopon, blepomen, tu teru, tu sabatu. Take it again. Angeloi, to prosopon, blepomen, tu teru, tu sabatu, rather. How do we translate this? Just what to be doing is what we continue to do. You identify the nouns. Identify the nouns. We have this to be the first one, number one. Then number two. Number three. Number four. We look at our vocabulary. We look at masculine nouns. Masculine nouns and loss. And loss means angel. So it's a masculine noun. Then we look at another masculine noun, the house, which means God. God. Then we have neuter nouns as well. The first one is from so on, which means face. The second one is sabatan, which means south. South. If you look at the masculine noun of second declension you see in the vocabulary of the dictionary, this is the ending we see, house. This shows that it is masculine noun of second declension. While they choose that it is neuter noun of second declension. So be mindful of this. Now we've identified that we have two masculine nouns in this sentence and then two neuter nouns. Then we identify their functions. The first one is angeloi. Angeloi is a vocative, is having vocative ending, and that's why there is common. And vocative is person address, and it's in the plural. That means this will be angels. Angels. Common. Then person address. In English. Person address. In English. So when we are facing it in English, it will be easier for us. Because vocative is equivalent to person address in English. Then we now have to prosopon. To prosopon. To prosopon is singular and it means face. Face with the article. This is a neuter article. now means the face. Now, we'll wait for a while before we can identify the function. Wait for a while. We'll come to the verb. Okay, before the verb, we'll come to the next noun, which is masculine. To tebu means of God in the singular, of God or gods. Then it's possessor in English. Possessor. In English. Then we have to sabatu. It's also a possessor and means of the Sabbath. Possessor. Alright. If you look at the verb, when you look at the subject from the ending of the verb, amen means we, and the verb means see. So that means it will mean we see. We see. Now, since this means we see, what they see, we'll now be able to fix the function of this one. So this one will be direct objects. Because it will come after the verb. Okay? Now, we've done the rough translation. How do we fix it? Since we have person address, and we come and separate the person address from the statement addressed to the person. So the person address will come first in English syntax. So now we have person address first. Angels, because the statement is addressed to angels. Then we now have the command, which means we see. Angels, we see. What do they see? The face. Direct object. Angels, we see the face of what? Of the God of the Sabbath. So the Greek sentence means in English, angels will see the face of the God of the Sabbath. Now, these three examples we've done so far can help one to begin to practice and master the translation of Greek sentences into English. Now we dealt with verbs and nouns, and the translation we've just done centers on the two parts of speech we've considered, that is nouns and verbs. As we progress in studying other parts of speech, this translator will begin to examine how to translate other parts of speech that will come into our study. At the end of this chapter 6, we have vocabulary and exercises. In the vocabulary, be sure that you master all the nouns in the vocabulary so that you begin to have in your memory Greek nouns and their meanings in English. Then, do not forget the exercises. Make sure you walk through the exercises and try your knowledge as per what we've taught in chapter 6. What we have in this volume 2 and volume 1 do not actually replace the textbook. Make sure that you are studying the textbook as you listen to the lecture in these 2 volumes, so that you can properly master all that you're supposed to master. I promise you that Volume 3 is coming on the way.